So lately, there's been a lot of talk building resilience in people. But is this what we really need? To simply toughen up? Or maybe we need to take the opposite approach and learn to be more vulnerable. Perhaps the answer lies somewhere in the middle. I'm Greg Pfeiffer, and this is the Better Humans Project podcast.
Now it's just another show. You leave 'em laughing when you go. And if you care, don't let them know. Don't give yourself away.
Welcome back to the Better Humans Project podcast, where we explore the depths of human experience, discover ways to thrive in its complex world. Today, we're diving into a subject that resonates deeply with all of us: vulnerability. In particular, vulnerability and the theory of shame resilience, and how these ideas, pioneered by the celebrated researcher Dr. Brené Brown, can help us build more authentic, connected lives. When you hear the word vulnerability, what comes to mind? For many, vulnerability is synonymous with weakness or exposure. But according to Brené Brown, vulnerability is the birthplace of creativity, innovation, and change. It's not about winning or losing. It's about having the courage to show up when you can't predict or control the outcome. It's the willingness to show our true selves, which can lead to deeper relationships and a greater sense of belonging. Research has shown that vulnerability is linked to resilience and mental health. When we allow ourselves to be vulnerable, we often find that it leads to increased empathy and understanding in our relationships. Brown defines vulnerability as uncertainty, risk, and emotional exposure. Whether you're sharing a new idea at work, admitting a mistake, or telling someone you love them first, you're stepping into the arena of vulnerability. And it's the willingness to put ourselves out there, not knowing how we'll be received. Vulnerability is not comfortable, but it's essential for connection. As Dr. Brown says, vulnerability is the core of all emotions and feelings. To feel is to be vulnerable. Without vulnerability, there's no empathy, no trust, no meaningful collaboration. So, if vulnerability is so powerful, why do we resist it? The answer often lies in shame. Brené Brown's research shines a light on the role of shame as a universal, deeply human emotion. Shame is the fear of disconnection, the belief that if someone else sees our flaws, mistakes, or imperfections, we'll be deemed unworthy of love or belonging. It's that voice in your head that says, I'm not good enough, or who do you think you are, or you're going to mess this up. When we feel shame, our instinct is to armor up. We hide, we numb, we people please, or we lash out. These forms of self protection may keep us safe from pain in the short term, but they also keep us isolated from genuine connection and joy. Brown's shame resilience theory is about learning to recognize shame, move through it with courage, and use vulnerability as a bridge to empathy and connection. It's about changing the narrative from I am bad to I did something that I regret, but I'm still worthy of love and belonging. So let's break down the four key elements of shame resilience as Brené Brown describes them. Firstly, is recognizing shame and understanding its triggers. This first step is simply noticing when we're in the grip of shame. And this means tuning into our physical reactions, like blushing, sweating, or wanting to disappear, as well as the stories we tell ourselves. Secondly, is practicing critical awareness. And here we question the social expectations that fuel our shame. Are we measuring ourselves against impossible standards? Are we internalizing myths about perfection or unworthiness? Thirdly, is reaching out. Shame thrives in secrecy, silence, and judgment. By sharing our stories with trustworthy people, we break the cycle. Empathy is the antidote to shame, Brown reminds us. When someone responds with understanding, shame loses its power. This not only helps you feel supported, but also reinforces the idea that you're not alone in your experiences. Then we have speaking shame. Finally, we name it. Saying, I'm feeling shame about this, takes away shame's ability to fester in the dark. It's a courageous act that invites connection and compassion. These steps aren't easy, but with practice, they can transform our relationships with others and with ourselves. You can also use these strategies to manage shame. Practice self compassion. Treat yourself with the same kindness you would offer a friend. Remember, everyone experiences vulnerability. It's part of being human. Set boundaries. It's okay to choose when and with whom to be vulnerable. You don't have to share everything with everyone. Reflect on your past experiences. Think about the moments when vulnerability has led to positive outcomes in your life. This can help you reframe your perspective on being vulnerable. So, where does being vulnerable help? Well, in many aspects of life, particularly in relationships and personal growth. In relationships, vulnerability fosters intimacy and trust. And in the workplace, it can lead to innovation and collaboration. When leaders show vulnerability, they create a culture of openness and creativity. Now, you might be wondering, how can I apply vulnerability and shame resilience in my everyday lives? So let's look at a couple of real world examples. So we'll start at work. Imagine you made a costly mistake on a project. So instead of covering it up, vulnerability means admitting the error to your team, owning your responsibility, and seeking solutions together. This honesty might feel risky, but it builds trust and shows others that it's safe to be human. In relationships, maybe you're feeling left out by friends. Naming your feelings and asking for what you need and communicating with your friends rather than withdrawing or blaming creates room for authentic connection. And with yourself, practicing self compassion. It's an act of vulnerability. It's letting go of the inner critic and treating yourself with the same kindness you'd offer a friend. In her book, Daring Greatly, Brown writes, vulnerability is not knowing victory or defeat. It's understanding the necessity of both. It's engaging. It's being all in. And when we're all in, we open ourselves up to joy, love, and learning. Another core idea from Brené Brown's work is embracing our imperfections. In a world obsessed with perfectionism, vulnerability asks us to show up as we are, messy, flawed, and wonderfully human. Perfectionism is not the same as striving for excellence. Instead, it's a shield we use to try and avoid shame, blame, or judgment. But perfection is an unattainable goal that keeps us anxious and disconnected. When we let go of perfectionism, we make space for courage, compassion, and connection. We begin to live wholeheartedly, as Brown describes, a life where worthiness is a birthright, not something to be earned. It's important to note that vulnerability is not oversharing or being emotionally reckless. It's about discernment, knowing who has earned the right to hear your story and when to hold boundaries. It's also about empathy, both given and received. So, why does vulnerability matter so much in personal relationships? Well, firstly, because it builds trust. When we allow ourselves to be vulnerable with others, sharing our thoughts and feelings, we signal trust. And this act invites others to reciprocate, laying a foundation for mutual understanding and respect. This is the bedrock of any meaningful relationship and cannot be built without openness. It fosters intimacy. True intimacy grows out of shared experiences, both joyous and painful. When we hide behind masks or keep our guard up, we limit the depth of connection possible. Revealing our inner world creates an emotional closeness that no amount of surface level conversation can achieve. It encourages empathy. Vulnerability allows others to see our humanity. When we share our struggles and imperfections, we invite empathy rather than judgment. And this in turn helps others feel safe to share their own stories, creating a cycle of compassion and understanding. It enhances communication. Open, honest communication is essential in resolving conflicts, expressing needs, and celebrating joys. By practicing vulnerability, we're more likely to communicate authentically and listen deeply, leading to fewer misunderstandings and richer dialogue. So let's now look at how does vulnerability work to strengthen those personal relationships. Firstly, in deepening emotional bonds. So imagine a relationship where both people are always on guard, never admitting to weakness or uncertainty. Such a relationship might appear harmonious on the surface, but it lacks the depth and richness that comes from shared vulnerability. When we dare to voice our fears of rejection, of failure, of not being enough, we invite our loved ones to comfort, support, and validate us. This process of mutual revealing and comforting forges a powerful emotional bond. It creates a culture of acceptance. No one is perfect. All of us make mistakes, experience setbacks, and harbor insecurities. When we normalize talking about our imperfections, we create an atmosphere of acceptance. This is especially vital in long term relationships where the pressure to maintain a facade can be exhausting. By acknowledging our vulnerabilities, we allow space for forgiveness, both for ourselves and others. It encourages growth and change. Vulnerability is closely tied to growth. In order to change, we must first acknowledge where we are and what we need. In personal relationships, expressing vulnerability may look like admitting when we've been wrong or when we're struggling with something we can't resolve alone. This honesty opens the door for support, advice, and shared problem solving, creating an environment where both people can learn and grow together. Resolving conflict with compassion. Disagreements are inevitable in any relationship. Vulnerability transforms conflict from a contest of wills into an opportunity for connection. For example, instead of lashing out or withdrawing during an argument, saying, I feel hurt when, or I'm afraid of losing you, softens the conversation, making room for empathy and understanding rather than defensiveness. It builds resilience to shame. Shame is a powerful emotion that thrives on secrecy and silence. Brené Brown calls shame the swampland of the soul, a feeling that tells us we are unworthy of love and belonging. Vulnerability, on the other hand, is the antidote to shame. By sharing our feelings of inadequacy or fear with someone we trust, we diminish shame's power and find reassurance in knowing we are not alone. Each act of vulnerability sets off a ripple of authenticity and openness. When we show up as our true selves, we inspire those around us to do the same. This effect is particularly powerful in families, friendships, and communities, where one person's example can shift group dynamics towards greater acceptance and understanding. Over time, relationships built on authenticity become resilient, adaptable, and deeply fulfilling. Now, let's look at what does all this look like in the context of the workplace, teams, and organizations. Organizations that value vulnerability and practice shame resilience see higher engagement, more creativity, and stronger relationships. Leaders who model vulnerability by admitting mistakes, asking for help, or sharing their own struggles set the tone for a culture of trust. If you're a leader, consider, how do you respond to failure or risk taking? Do you punish mistakes or do you treat them as opportunities for growth? When people feel safe to be vulnerable, they're more likely to collaborate, innovate, and support one another. So let's dive a little bit deeper into what are the benefits of practicing vulnerability in the workplace. And it can lead to numerous benefits for individuals, teams, and the overall organizational culture. So here are some key advantages. One, enhanced trust and connection. When leaders and team members show vulnerability, it fosters an environment of trust. Openly sharing challenges and uncertainties can strengthen relationships and create a sense of belonging amongst colleagues and team members. Improve collaboration, because vulnerability encourages open communication and collaboration. When team members feel safe to express their thoughts and ideas, it leads to more effective teamwork and problem solving. Increased innovation. A culture that embraces vulnerability allows employees or team members to take risks without fear of judgment. This openness can lead to greater creativity and innovative solutions as individuals feel more empowered to share unconventional ideas. There is greater employee engagement. Strangely enough, when employees feel connected and valued, they are more likely to be engaged in their work. Vulnerability helps create an inclusive environment where everyone feels their contributions matter. There is enhanced leadership effectiveness. Leaders who demonstrate vulnerability can inspire and motivate their teams. By sharing their own challenges and learning experiences, leaders can model resilience and encourage growth amongst team members. And importantly, these days, there is increased psychological safety. Vulnerability contributes to a psychologically safe workplace where employees feel comfortable taking risks and expressing themselves without fear of retribution. This safety is critical for fostering open dialogue and addressing issues proactively. Better conflict resolution. A culture of vulnerability allows for more constructive approaches to conflict. Team members are more likely to address misunderstandings openly and collaboratively, leading to quicker resolutions and stronger relationships. It's development of empathy. Sharing vulnerabilities can increase empathy among team members. Understanding each other's struggles fosters a supportive environment where individuals are more likely to help one another. Personal growth and development. Practicing vulnerability encourages individuals to step outside their comfort zones, leading to personal and professional growth. Employees learn to embrace feedback, share their goals, and seek support when needed. And lastly, increased retention and job satisfaction. Employees who feel connected and valued are more likely to stay with an organization. A culture of vulnerability can lead to higher job satisfaction and lower turnover rates. Again, embracing vulnerability in the workplace creates a positive ripple effect, enhancing relationships, innovation, and overall organizational health. By fostering an environment where individuals feel safe to be themselves, companies can unlock the full potential of their teams and cultivate a thriving workplace culture. So, now I want to clarify some common misconceptions about vulnerability, which is a frequently misunderstood concept. Here are some of the most prevalent ones. One, vulnerability is a weakness. Many people believe that being vulnerable shows weakness or fragility. In reality, Vulnerability requires significant courage and strength. It takes bravery to expose oneself emotionally and to be open about fears and struggles. Two, being vulnerable means sharing everything. Some people think that to be vulnerable, you must share every detail of your life. However, vulnerability is about authenticity and openness, not about oversharing. It's about being selective and sharing what feels right in a given context. Three, vulnerability leads to shame. While vulnerability can sometimes evoke feelings of shame, it does not inherently lead to shame. In fact, expressing vulnerability can foster connection and understanding, which can counteract the feelings of shame. Four, vulnerability is only for personal relationships. So many people believe vulnerability is only relevant in personal or intimate relationships. However, as we have talked about above, vulnerability plays a crucial role in professional settings as well, because the leaders who show vulnerability can inspire trust and collaboration amongst team members. Five, you can be vulnerable without risking pain. Some think it's possible to be vulnerable without the risk of being hurt. Now, while vulnerability can lead to rejection or disappointment, it can also lead to deeper connections and personal growth. And the key is to embrace the potential for both positive and the negative outcomes. Six, vulnerability is a one time event. People often view vulnerability as a singular act rather than ongoing practice. Being vulnerable is a continuous journey that evolves with experiences and relationships. Seven, vulnerability equals emotional instability. There's a misconception that being vulnerable means someone is emotionally unstable or overly emotional. In reality, vulnerability is a sign of emotional health and self awareness, as it involves acknowledging and expressing one's feelings. Eight, vulnerability is only for certain types of people. So some people believe that only certain people, like those with specific personality traits, can be vulnerable. In truth, everyone has the capacity for vulnerability, regardless of your personality type or background. Nine, vulnerability is a gendered experience. Now, there's a stereotype that vulnerability is more acceptable for women than for men, who are often socialized to suppress their emotions. However, vulnerability is a universal human experience that transcends gender. And 10, you must be vulnerable all the time. So some people think that to be authentic, you must always be vulnerable. Now, whilst vulnerability is important, it's also crucial to set boundaries and protect yourself. It's about finding the right balance and choosing the appropriate moments for vulnerability. So, now let's review some practical steps you can take to invite more vulnerability and resilience into your lives. Firstly, notice the moments when you feel the urge to armor up. Pause and ask yourself, what am I really feeling and where is this coming from? Next, challenge perfectionism by setting realistic standards and embracing mistakes as part of learning. Thirdly, reach out to others you trust when experiencing shame or vulnerability. So, connection is the best medicine. Next is to practice self compassion. Speak to yourself with kindness, especially when you fall short, make that mistake, and lead by example at home, at work, or in your community. Your willingness to be real gives others permission to do the same. Vulnerability is not a weakness, it's the greatest measure of courage. By embracing vulnerability and building shame resilience, we unlock the power of authentic connection and create spaces where everyone can belong. It enables greater agency in our lives, to be more authentic, and to take greater ownership of our life and our life choices. For men especially, there's a need to flip the narrative on vulnerability from being a weakness to being a strength. Vulnerability needs to be embraced, not shunned. Dealing with our shame and building a specific kind of resilience, shame resilience, can bring so many positives to our lives. As you move forward, keep in mind that vulnerability is a daily practice, a conscious choice to show up, be seen, and let your true self be known. Each act of openness, no matter how small, lays the groundwork for deeper trust and more meaningful relationships. So, the next time you feel uncertain or exposed, remember that you're not alone on this journey. Many have walked this path before you, discovering along the way that courage is contagious and authenticity has a ripple effect. If you've enjoyed this episode, please subscribe and share it with someone who might find it useful. And as always, if you have any questions or want to share your own journey of change, betterment, or transformation, reach out on email contact@thebetterhumansproject.com. If you want to learn more about Brené Brown's work, check out her books Daring Greatly, The Gifts of Imperfection, and Braving the Wilderness. This is the Better Humans Project podcast. Remember, the courage to be vulnerable is the beginning of everything that matters. I'm Greg Pfeiffer, and until next time, be good to yourself and one another. Take care.
Now it's just another